Okay, we left off. We're on. Okay, we're on Nun Beis. Okay, Nun Beis Uman Aleph. We were discussing the case in the Mishnah. It says a person takes a basket of figs during Shvius, which initially was theirs, their field, but because again the Gemara said because Shvius is hefker, it's ownerless. So when he takes the produce of that field and gives it to the women, it's considered it's his money, equivalent of his, giving it to them. And he's Mekadosh 5 women, and 2 of them are sisters. So it says 3 of the women are married to him, the 2 sisters are not married to him. Okay? So we had before, Rava interprets the Mishnah his way, because it's Kedusha and Mesur Labiyah, correct? And Abaye, which we rule like Abaye, he interprets it, he says, among the sisters, the one that I'm permitted to cohabit with. Just since he's not, so the 2 sisters he's not married to, the others he is. Okay? Omar Rav. Shmamino Masdisin Arba. We're able to draw from this Mishnah 4 halachos, 4 laws. However, V'nokat Rav B'yodei Klas, meaning the Masorah was, what he had in tradition was, from the Mishnah we're able to draw 3 laws, 4 laws, but he was only able to come up with 3 of the 4. What are the 3 that he was conclusively and definitively able to extrapolate from the Mishnah? Hamakadish b'perish shvius m'kudoshim. Okay, we left off yesterday. We discussed yesterday. The first day of Sukkot, learning Hilchos Lulav. It says, L'kachtem lochem b'yom harishon. What does lochem mean? Monetarily, the lulav, the dollar minim have to be yours. You borrow a lulav on the first day where it's not a matana malas lahazir, where it's not given as a gift, conditionally that it has to be returned, you're not yotzei. So what happens if a person has esrig shel ma'aser sheni? An esrig was ma'aser sheni, and that's one of the 4 minim. It's the first day of Yom Tov. Are you yotzei? So the halacha is you're not yotzei. Because monetary, it's a machlokas, remand the chachomim, whether it's moment gavoa or it's moment hedjut. Esrig shel ma'aser sheni, does it belong to you, or you have a right to eat it, but it's God's. You cannot have monetary ownership in ma'aser sheni. So we rule like Reb Meir that ma'aser sheni is moment gavoa, it's God's, and you only have a right to eat it. So if that's the case, you don't own the esrog. Therefore, if you give that esrog in marriage to a woman, harei mukadeshesly with this esrog, you're not giving something, you can't own it, and she can't acquire it. She may be able to eat it, but you've given her nothing, and what she has also, there's no intrinsic ownership in it. No, not because it's Yerushalayim. Not because it's Yerushalayim. That's a separate. That's a detail. That's a detail in Ma'aser Sheni. We're talking about. Suppose it's something else. Yeah, but the kedusha it doesn't make a difference. But the kedusha, but the object you have, as it is not yours. You can eat it. You have eating rights. You have to maintain it within a context of kedusha. You're now permitted to allow it to become contaminated. But monetarily, you don't own it. So I would think maybe perish shvius, the produce of shvius, something similar. You're permitted to eat it, because factually it does have a sanctity to it, but ownership, you have no ownership. But since the Mishnah says that he gave them a basket of figs that were produce of shvius, so we see over there that you can, that monetarily you do own it. And that's why she's mukadeshes. Ushmamino. Kitchu begezel einem kudeshes. Afil begezel dido. Here. Let's say you steal something from a woman, and you take the object, and you say to her, Harei mukadeshes li, with the stolen object. Normally, when you give a woman a ring, you say, Harei mukadeshes li. She doesn't verbally acknowledge that she's agreeable to be married. Right? We say shtika kodo. We say the silence. Making that kind of comment, if she's not, she would respond, say, no, I'm not. I'm taking the ring as a gift, but not in marriage. So her silence is the equivalent of saying, I'm in agreement to be married to you. So what? Wait, I'm talking about a regular case of marriage. I'm not talking this case. Because marriage is a serious thing. So therefore, remaining silence means she's consenting. She's consenting to be married. right? But over here, it's like maybe a man takes her object and says, Hareim Mukadeshes with this object. She's giving back her own object. So you would think maybe, if she wants to be married to him, right? So she's willing to say, that you have the object, I'm mochel. I'm waiving it. To be married, it has to be yours. So although originally you did something which is forbidden, but now that you're in possession, you want to give it to me in marriage, I accept it in marriage. So I'd say, maybe I should say the silence is an indication that she's waiving the obligation for him to return it to her, since it's his. So therefore, when she receives it, she's receiving something which he had given her. Maybe you would say that. But the inference of the Mishnah is not this. The only reason why it says he took the produce of her field during the sabbatical year. So it's only because it's hefker. But if actually initially if it would have been hers and he gave it to her in the exact same context, she would not be married. Right? That's the inference of the Mishnah. It's only because it was hefker. But if it wouldn't have been hefker, although he's giving it to her and she's remaining silent, it's not enough. That's not an indication. She's remaining silent because, you know why something? Because he's not giving me anything. Because factually he's giving back what's rightfully mine. So you think, I feel begezli do, mimag. How do we know, even if he had stolen something from her, given it back to her in marriage? Because the Mishnah says it was their field, right? It was their field, and it happened to be during the sabbatical year. Time of the shvi is the hefkeru. The reason why, when he took it from their field, why is it a marriage? Because the item that he had taken was an ownerless object. The fruit was ownerless. And he acquired it, so therefore when he gave it to them, he was giving them produce, which was his produce. But if it would have been other years of the sabbatical cycle, which is theirs, lo. Okay?
What about the point of the lulav that we're not sure if both Hashem is not the person?
Not the lulav, the fruit. Not what we should. We rule. It's mama gavoa. So it doesn't know with it. So you want to be a Makadish woman with an Esrog. She'll might say the way we rule, she's not married. No, it's a Mishnah later. It's a Mishnah later. You Makadish, it says, you Makadish, a Kohen goes, he takes his portion of Chatos, and he marries a woman with the Chatos. She's not married. Because Chatos also says, Mishuch L'Gavoka Zochu. It becomes his. Of course we know. Maybe not. He did the wrong thing, but maybe you're not a thief. There's no reimbursement. There's no restitution. Maybe not. How do you know? Maybe. How do you know? How do you know that? From this Mishnah, we know. Well, this is one thing. No. No, it's not clear. It's not clear. Maybe it's only eating rights. You have eating rights. No, we're saying there is ownership. If there wouldn't be ownership, she wouldn't be married here. He owns it, and now when he gives it to them, now they own it. Whoever receives it, they own it. They're theft. It's theft. That was drawing from this Mishnah. He owns it, and because he owns it, that's why the marriage is a marriage. But if it would have been during any other the sabbatical years, he's a thief because he took their produce. But even though he's a thief, but since he's returning to them in marriage and they remain silent, maybe that's an indication that they're waiving the obligation to return it. So he's, as a result of that, he's giving something which is his. Ernie thinks big. Truckload, you good? No, that's a separate issue. There's a Gzeres HaKosuf. There's a Gzeres HaKosuf that you cannot use it in a commercial context. Tosa is going to ask a question here. Tosa is going to ask a question. It says, the Torah says, L'ochlo v'lo l'schora. It's yours, you have ownership rights for eating, but not to engage in commerce. Because the Torah says so, that's why. Wait a second. So Tosas asks, so whatever Makrash and Isha? That's Tosa's question. So you're not using it, okay? But factually, so Tosa says, what happens if factually you did the wrong thing? You take produce of Shvius and you sell it. That money, is that your money? It's your money. You violated the law. You're not permitted, but it's a valid sale. Whoever purchases it's his, and the money you received is your money. Did you do the wrong thing? You did the wrong thing. So Tosa says it's b'diavad. That's number one. That's one answer. There's a commentary, Tosa Riazok, inside a page. He says, schor means that's purchasing. It's eating not for purchasing, not for to commercialize it. When you marry a woman, we discussed it back on Daf Gimel. If you remember, we mentioned the question the Rajba asks. The Rajba asks, how do we know that a woman can be married with money? Of course, it says regarding the purchase of the Maris Machpelah, kicho, and it says ki kachishisha. So we have Xerushav kicho ki, just as a field by Avram Avinu, he purchased it with money. So therefore, when it says ki kachishisha, you give her money, something minimally a pruta, right? It's sent. So the Rajba asks, if a person goes and he wants to acquire a piece of property and he does an act which demonstrates ownership, chazoka, we call chazoka, puts a fence around the field. He changes the lock in the door. That's a demonstration of ownership. You've acquired the field on a Torah level. We had earlier an Eved Kanani. An Eved Kanani. How do you call one of the ways to acquire a Kanani slave? That if you would say to him, take my clothing and my shoes, bring them to the bathhouse. That's because the only person who does that is a slave. That's chazokah. Or you tell the slave, carry me, pick me up. If the slave picks up the master and carries the master, that's an act of chazokah. Wait a second, that's chazokah. So Rashba asks, so why can't you marry a woman with chazokah? You're demonstrating your ownership over her. You know? Let's see, only a slave would behave in a certain way. It would be a demonstration of ownership. So that's Rashba's answer. The answer is, chazokah is taking possession. When you marry, you're not taking possession of your wife. You don't own her. The act itself causes that she should be your wife. It's not that you own her. The chazokah means I'm demonstrating ownership. You cannot demonstrate ownership on a woman or any other Jew. You can only acquire a chattel. A Jew cannot be a chattel. Therefore, that you can't learn from there. Torah says when you give something of value, as when you give something of value for a piece of property, it becomes yours. When you give something of value to a woman, she becomes your wife. But there you own the field. You don't own your wife. That's all. That's what it means.
Rabbi, continuing on earnings thinking big. If you take a field and so you have eating rights for yourself, and not engaging in commerce. But if you feed a whole population of poor people, how does that work?
It's not commercialized. You're not commercializing it.
No, so therefore
It's permitted. Yeah. So what I'm saying over here, so that's the Tosas Riazoki. When you marry a woman, you're not purchasing. If it would be a purchase, that would be called schora. La'ochla v'lo schora. Here, you're using it in marriage. There's nothing wrong with using it. So she'll eat it. I don't need it. She'll eat it. But when you sell something as on a commercial level, that's commercial. That's schora. You can't engage in commerce with something which has kiddushin shvius. So you did give us something of value.
Let's say the whole question whether you have to actually muck in the field.
I'm not getting involved. If Gemara says hefker. Shvius is hefker.
Let's say you regularly stole something and you wanted to marry.
We're going to discuss this in a minute. We're going to discuss this in a minute. We're going to discuss this in a minute. No. The Gemara says this. Because it's hefker.
Because you might have contemplated maybe not.
Correct?
That it might be eating rights.
Correct.
If you were to say that it's eating rights, and he gave the woman a kiddushin for eating rights, wouldn't that be more than a pruta?
He didn't give, no, again.
Because I'm giving you this for your eating pleasure. So he doesn't have ownership.
He didn't give her the eating rights. He didn't give her eating rights. Let me ask you a question. You have something lying in the street, and you take a gun and say, you touch that, I will shoot you. if you marry me, I won't shoot you. And she picks up the object. And the object is not the man who threatened her. Is she married to him? The object is not yours. Well, because of me, now you're able to eat it. Now you have something of value. Meaning, I have eating rights, but the eating rights is not a monetary ownership. When you give it to her, now I'm not preventing you from eating, but what are you eating? You're not eating anything of mine. Those eating rights the Torah gives, whoever has that item has a right to eat it. It's because I'm preventing you from eating it. But now that I say you could have it, I'm not preventing you. But the eating rights you're having, the Torah gave you those eating rights. It's not I gave you the eating rights. They're not your eating rights. No. Whoever has it in his hand has the right to eat it. If you no longer want it, Torah says, whoever has it has those eating rights. It's not you giving her the eating rights. You're preventing her from eating it. Until you give it, you're preventing her from eating it. Now that I'm not interested in eating it, now she's eating it. But why is she eating? Because you're not eating it. You did the wrong thing. You're not a thief. You've done something wrong. Because the Torah... No, but it's an eating right, which is not a monetary right. It's like, similarly, we'll get to the Mishnah later. Kohen receives his portion of chatos. So he has the right to eat that chatos. A Kohen takes it from him. He did the wrong thing. You'd say it's unethical what he did. But factually, you denied him a right that he had. And so he has one who has the chatos in his possession has a right to eat it. So no longer it's not in his possession. So somebody else ate it. Did he do the wrong thing? Yes. But did he steal? It's not considered stealing. But what's satisfying her is not me. It's not me. See, I'll give you an example. We had earlier, a man says to a woman says, dance before me and I will marry you. Rekod lefonai. Right? Person's a comedian. Like some people, they ask certain kind of questions. Right? And I will marry you with the value of that entertainment. She's married. Because on the market, the man could get a fee for that. So let's say she would say, bring me my sasheni, so I should be able to eat breakfast. So that's a service. So there he's married with the service. It's not with the sasheni. But the satisfaction that she's satisfied, that's not something he's providing. If it's for the service that you normally have to pay for somebody to bring it to you, that's a shavet pruta. That's something you're giving. Definitely.
And then she would be married.
But he's not married with the produce. It's with the service. With the service. The service is a shavet pruta. Okay, we're going to have a Mishnah later in this parak. Okay? Ushmami no isha nasas shlich lechaverto. Afilu mokshi nasas lotzora. Okay, what is this speaking about? The Mishnah tells us in Yevamos, later in kiddushin, that Ein Dov Shebe'er v'Post Mishnayim. Regarding the marital status of a person, you have to have no less than 2 valid witnesses. Therefore, for kiddushin, for gittin, okay? So let's say a woman's a married woman, and there's a question, and a single witness comes and says, I was at your husband's funeral. A single witness. Is he believed? Is he believed or not? He's an Eid Echot. So Torah says, by accepting of that testimony, her state of being married to a single woman, that's what happens. Torah says, Ein Dov Shebe'er v'Post Mishnayim. Regarding her status as a married woman, Torah says you require nothing less than 2 witnesses. So the Gemara says, but rabbinically, we accept testimony of 1 witness. But if she's a married woman, so the Gemara says, Rashi explains over there, that what they do is, if in fact the husband did die, they annul the marriage. The marriage is annulled retroactively, so she's really a single woman. I'm going to explain in a minute. We say mishum aguna kilu barabanan, because a woman to remain bound, not knowing if her husband's alive, so therefore rabbinically 1 witness is sufficient. Not only is 1 witness, even if a woman would come and testify, she's also believed. Although a woman's not believed in this area of monetary or erva, but because aguna, but why are we so lenient? Bishum aguna, but it's not. We have to have a safety gap, a safety measure here, because factually, if the husband should appear, you know what happens? We say to her, and let's say she marries another man. We say not only the new husband, she's definitely not permitted because she's a married woman because the husband appears. She's not even permitted to go back to the first husband. She say, but I didn't know. No. Because the Chazal say that Isha Daiko Mitzvah, that a woman is not permitted to remarry unless she researches and investigates to confirm that he definitely is not alive. And if factually, if he appears, that means your investigation was faulty. And therefore, we penalize you to the nth degree that second husband, we understand she can be married. Kids are a mamzer or illegitimate because she was a married woman. But we even forced the first husband to divorce her. He has to divorce her. We will not allow her to remain. So because of that stringency, that if he should reveal himself, therefore we annul the marriage. So if actually he does appear, that means she failed. Therefore we don't annul the marriage. It's a conditional annulment. No, two witnesses. She's permitted to the first husband. Torah says because she doesn't have to investigate. That's evidence. Two witnesses is evidence. Can I ask you, you have two witnesses? So the court interrogates them, and factually the conclusion is, the verdict is, she's a widow. So she was married. Why should we penalize her? So good. So she's an onus. What happens if a woman's raped? It's the equivalent of rape. If she married, the kids will be mamzerim from a second husband. We're talking about the first husband. She's permitted to the first husband.
Let's go with this case. Two witnesses come and say that the man died. The woman remarries and has children. Now this man who died shows up. What happens to this woman? What is her situation?
She's permitted to the first husband. She goes back to her first husband. Second one, she has not divorce. She has to leave the second. She's a married woman. The marriage to the second husband was them mamzerim. I'll give you another case. Let's annul. They don't annul marriage from mamzerim. They don't annul it.
No, because they were witnesses.
Does make a difference. Does make a difference. What happens if a woman's raped? A married woman's raped by a Jewish man, and she conceives from the rape. She was raped.
Yes, but the children are mamzerim.
Let's annul the marriage, and they won't be mamzerim. Right? Because of the unfortunate circumstance. We don't annul marriages for mamzerim. There's only certain times we do annul the marriage, such as a case where she'll be an aguna. No, adulteress, no. You don't have to. Because she was raped, the Torah says explicitly.
I'm talking about this one, the case. The husband was thought to be dead, and she's now married to another.
Even though on a Torah level she's not an adulteress, she's not, because she believed he was dead. Doesn't make it what the fact is. No. A woman has to believe she's married. It's like it's no worse than a show gig. In her mind, if she would have known her husband was alive, there's no way she would have done this act, because she believed that her husband wasn't alive based on her faulty investigation. So therefore, it's not worse than a show gig. A show gig, a woman is permitted to her husband. It was inadvertent, even though she wasn't raped, right? But it's inadvertent. Inadvertent woman doesn't become an adulteress. But we penalize as if she is an adulteress. That is the penalty. We treat it like as if she is an adulteress. Therefore, she has to leave her husband. No, the first husband. Second husband's understood she can't be with. She's a married woman. She leaves the first husband. We force her to leave.
Is there a get from the second husband?
No. What does she need a get for?
There was a kiddushin.
A woman marries a gorilla. Does she need a get? Okay? She's a married woman. The Torah says a man cannot marry a married woman. Right?
So it was, what you said was a meaningless act.
Meaningless act. You went.
We had the gadol hador, the tzedek
Doesn't make a difference. He said a bracha levatola to God lador. Exactly.
But it's a suffix. Why not treat it as a suffix?
What's a suffix?
He had no idea that.
Can I ask you a question? You go to a restaurant, glatt kosher, and it turns out that he fed you non-kosher meat. It's a suffix. You ate non-kosher meat, factually. Factually, she's a married woman. What do you mean it's a suffix?
Actually, the fact was the witnesses came and said the guy died.
But factually, the husband's here. The Gemara speaks about a case. Witnesses are interrogated that Ruvain killed Shimon. Right? And there's a verdict. Ruvain has to be killed. All of a sudden, Shimon arrives in Bezdin. They say, we're sorry, we can't deal with the reality, we have to deal with the ruling. Do you kill Ruvain? Shimon is saying, well, we interrogated the witness. It's irrelevant what you interrogated. Factually, the man's alive. Factually, there's a husband. Factually, there's a husband's second marriage. There's nothing. She's a married woman. Can't marry a married woman.
What I don't understand is that when the husband shows up, even though there were two witnesses, so the woman reverts back to her first husband. But the children of the second husband
Oh, mamzerim.
are mamzerim, so they suffer from that consequence.
Therefore what? What happens if a
Well,
woman,
the mother-
let's say a Jewish woman was married Jewishly, legally, and she didn't know she needs a get. She thought a civil divorce is sufficient. And she marries another man, she has children. Of the kids are legitimate. They're mamzerim. Of course they're mamzerim. She never... But why should the children suffer? It's irrelevant. And when a woman is raped, why should the woman suffer? The Torah says that an adulterous act, the result of that is mamzerim. They're illegitimate.
In this case,
What?
the witnesses came and testified, and now the man came back, he's alive, so she went back to her first husband. But it's not fair for the children to be mamzerim. They didn't.
And if
Every situation is there.
yeah, that's only a consequence of the act of the parent. Right? I think Robbie's going to run for office in France. That's the mindset over there. It's not fair. Okay.
She's faced with the situation. She goes to the bedroom and she says, there's two witnesses, and then she says to the bedroom, just to make this, 100%.
They will not annul it. They will not annul the marriage.
This is my husband. They may be wrong. My husband, my first husband.
You know what they'll say? Don't get married. Don't get married.
Please annul the marriage.
They will not annul it.
Skin off your nose.
No, they will not annul it. They will not. For that. No, under no circumstances will they annul it. There was a recent case, 10 years ago, 15 years ago. There was a certain rabbi. He set up a bezdin in Queens. That all the cases where women, the husbands didn't want to get, he set up a bezdin with some crazy other rabbi. He was an older man. This other one was a little eccentric. They're going to they're going to annul marriages. Any man who doesn't want to give his wife a get, you come before this bezdin, they'll annul the marriage for you. Yeah, this was 15 years ago, and no, whatever the bezdin they set up, but right, and they permitted 300 married women, over 300, to remarry. Okay, so without a get, because they annulled the marriage, because the husbands didn't want to give a get. So there was a certain forum, about discussing this and that. So the person says, well, we have a right. He says, who gives you the right? Well, I'm a rabbi. He said, but Rabbi Yoshev, then he was alive. They says the kids, no question. Defim mamzerim. They said, well, we disagree with Rabbi Yoshev. Finished. Okay? Okay. What is it called? Kosher crab. Okay. Okay, so what's the case of tzara? So rabbinically, the Gemara says because aguna, if in fact she says that she did a thorough investigation, we annul the marriage. It's a conditional annulment. What about if the one who comes in, even a woman, offers the testimony the man died, we accept it, and we annul the marriage. What happens if her co-wife comes to testify? What we call it tzara, co-wife. We don't accept that testimony. What about a mother-in-law? Also, because we say a mother-in-law hates her daughter-in-law. Therefore, she wants the daughter-in-law to be ensnared in adultery, an adulteress, so she'll lie, and the co-wife who cannot tolerate the competition, so she wants her to be divorced from her husband. So therefore, she'll come and she'll lie, say he died, but he really didn't die. Therefore, their testimony is rejected. Yeah, serious conflict of interest, right? Therefore, they're not accepted. So over here, we're saying, so maybe these women, they're going to become co-wives. Could you be a shliach to represent someone else, to be the agent to marry them when they're going to be a co-wife? One woman was appointed to be a shliach, all of them, so they all become co-wives of the man that she's accepting. There's a shabbat pruta in the fruit for every one of the women. She's representing every one of the women. So simultaneously, you have 3 of the 5 women becoming co-wives. You see, it's not a problem, right? That's the Shema Minah.
So that's the third case, right?
That's the third case. So the Gemara says, Idach Mai. What's the fourth case that Rav himself was unclear what it was? Kiddushin Mesur and Labiyah. Right? Kiddushin Mesur and Labiyah. We had the argument before Rav and Nabai. Why? Because we said, wait, one of the women, we said one of the women should be married to one of the sisters. So, Gemara says, V'nechshava. So why doesn't Rav count that as the fourth? That Kiddushin Mesur and Labiyah is Yishum Dem Safkalei. Ikabai Karav, because he was unclear whether we should learn the case of the Mishnah as Abai learned the case or as Rav learned the case. Therefore, the fourth halacha he wasn't able to extrapolate from the Mishnah. Okay? Just want to mention something. The Tosas says, the Gemara says in Yevomis regarding Eid Echad for whether she testifies that the husband died. What about if there was a state of war? David, you hear? There was a state of war. So and the person comes back from the battlefront. He says, "I saw your husband killed on the battlefront." The person is not believed. Why? Because when there's a state of war, there's always a concern. Let's say a person was wounded. So because of the surrounding circumstances, the person made a conclusion. It was a mortal wound. But maybe the person didn't die. So it was only due to the surrounding circumstances would cause the person to believe something to be, but it may not be. Okay? That's the Gemara. So if it's Shas Milchama, Eid Echad's not believed. You have to have 2 witnesses because you have 2. Each witness corroborates what the other one had said. But if you have 1, there's no one to corroborate it, therefore we don't. So Tosei has a question. So Gemara says, the Mishnah says, what happens if we're not aware that there's a state of war in that part of the world? And an Eid Echad comes and says, so-and-so died. And he informs us that there was a state of war. So it says, we don't accept the testimony. You have the case? Wait, so Tosas asks, is amigo? If he wouldn't have informed us that it was a state of war, we would have accepted his testimony. See, Tosas asks, let him be believed that what he's saying is true, because he didn't have to reveal that it was a state of war. If he would,
It's not a question of believing, it's a question of what he said.
oh, good. So that's Tosas' answer. Very good. Very good. You had to answer, Howard.
I didn't hear it.
Okay. You didn't have to hear it. You should have said the answer yourself. Okay. Okay. Such humility. Okay. Okay. What is migu? Migu is believing what I'm saying, because if I would have wanted to be dishonest, I could have remained silent. Here it's not a question of honesty. We believe what you're saying. You believe that you're telling me the truth. We're concerned that what you're saying is not accurate, because you may believe he died, but in reality he didn't die. So now we're not questioning your integrity. We're questioning the accuracy of your testimony. So if it's a state of war, see, you factually informed us it was a state of war. So now we have a serious question. What you saw, was it accurate? If you wouldn't have said it was state of war, okay, so we'd say it is accurate because there wasn't a state of war. But now that you gave us that information, now we question the accuracy of what you're saying. Therefore, we can't permit it to remarry.
So a woman survived. She's a survivor. And she wants to get
Wasn't simple.
Can they assume the law, the majority, or do they annul? What do they do for this woman? It may be
Wasn't
in
simple.
Australia, for all we know.
And there were cases, husbands came back from Australia, from wherever.
So what do
After
they
Rebbe Vayeishev passed away, Rebbe Vayeishev all his life did not learn with a study partner, with a chavrusa. So his wife, he married Reb Ari Levin's daughter, Rebbe Vayeishev. And Reb Ari Levin knew how special he was, but nobody knew how special he was. And he always studied himself. So Rebbe Vayeishev, there was a special kollel in Yerushalayim, and he asked the head of the kollel to accept his son-in-law in the kollel. So they accepted him, not because they thought he was so special, because if Rabbi Ari Levin asks, they'll accept him. And he would say to himself, learn. They knew he was what we call a masmid. He was committed to learning, didn't waste a moment. But was he anything special? They thought he had a very ordinary mind. Otherwise, he would have interacted with everyone else. Comes after the war. He had all the people coming from the Holocaust, women who were married. And Reb Herzog was the chief rabbi in Israel. And he was a tremendous Talmud Chacham, and he understood it. And it wasn't simple. How do you permit all these women? So he came to consult with the people, widows. They didn't know whether they were widows or the husbands were alive. They were married before the war, and they had hundreds of these women. And Rav Herzog comes and consults with her. These are the most special Torah scholars, Talmud Chacham in Yerushalayim. They're confounded. They don't even know. So he figures this little person sitting in the corner will consult with him. Nobody ever interacted with him. And Rav Herzog sits down with him, and he opens vistas that Rav Herzog himself never even considered. And through this interaction, they permitted hundreds of widows to remarry. And every day, Rav Herzog would come to the kollel, spend hours with Rebbe Vayeishev, and then that's when it became known who Rebbe Vayeishev was. No, you have to have certain. I don't know what the facts were. There was a case, Rebbe Vayeishev, he passed away a year ago, so it's written in his biography that he would come also to permit an aguna to remarry. He would write a responsa, 80 pages. And before he would give the ruling, he would go to Rebbe Vayeishev to discuss with him. Rebbe Vayeishev would hear the case, and within, this Rebbe Vayeishev said, within a minute, he'd give the ruling, why it's permitted. So Rebbe Vayeishev said, I had to write 80 pages to permit it to remarry. And Rebbe Vayeishev, within a minute, he gave the conclusion. I'm just saying, but it's not simple. To be continued.